Let's start with something nobody really admits out loud. Most people don't just have a money problem. They have a health problem that's being quietly powered by money stress in the background. And the bill for that doesn't show up at the bank. It shows up in their sleep, their blood pressure, their anxiety, and how quickly they burn out. Think about the average normal month for a lot of people. The paycheck hits, a few bills auto-draft, and before they even understand where the money went, their balance is back on life support. On the surface, it just looks like, yeah, money's tight. But look underneath that. Every time they open their banking app, their stomach drops. Every new email notification could be another bill. Every unknown phone number might be a creditor. That constant low-grade panic is not free. It's a tax your body pays every single day. Here's the part that people underestimate. Your brain doesn't really understand the difference between "I might not afford rent next month" and "there's a predator nearby." It just knows something feels dangerous and uncertain. So it does what it's designed to do. It fires up your stress response. Heart rate up, breathing shallow, muscles tense, cortisol flowing. This is useful if you need to sprint away from something for 30 seconds. It's destructive when you live this way for months or years. And that's exactly what financial stress does. It doesn't hit you once and go away. It keeps resetting the alarm. You're trying to fall asleep, and your brain goes, "What if you lose your job next year?" You're at work, and instead of focusing on your task, you're replaying your credit card balances in your head. You're eating dinner, but you're not tasting anything because you're running numbers in your mind. That isn't just being worried. That's your nervous system fighting a war it can't win on a battlefield made of overdue bills and minimum payments. Let's make this real. Picture someone earning a perfectly average income, not rich, not poor. They're carrying a few thousand in credit card debt, a car payment, some student loans, and maybe they're behind on a couple of bills. No emergency fund, no real savings. On paper, they're just like everyone else, but live inside that person's body for 1 month. Every unexpected sound from their car is a potential financial disaster. Every cough from their kid is a question. Can we afford a doctor right now? Every minor mistake at work comes with the intrusive thought, if I get fired, we're done. Now, here's the cruel part. That level of stress doesn't just feel bad. It changes behavior. When you're in survival mode, your brain stops thinking long-term. It doesn't care about next year's financial goals. It cares about getting some relief right now. That's why financially stressed people are more likely to make decisions that actually keep them broke. They buy convenience because they're too exhausted to plan. They scroll and impulse spend because that tiny dopamine hit is the only break their brain gets. They avoid opening bills because the emotional hit feels worse than the late fee. From the outside, it looks irrational. From the inside, it's completely logical. The brain is trying to reduce pain in the fastest way possible. And the more it does that, the worse the money situation gets, which increases the stress, which makes decisions even worse. That's the health tax compounding in real time. Think about sleep, for example. Financial stress is one of the most common reasons people lie awake at night. You don't need a study to prove it. Look at your own life or the people around you. How many nights have been ruined by replaying money conversations, worrying about a bill, or doing mental math you already know won't work out? Poor sleep then bleeds into everything else. You wake up tired. You're more irritable. You make more mistakes at work. You're more likely to snap at your partner or your kids. You rely on caffeine and sugar to push through the day. And then, because you're drained, you're even less capable of sitting down, thinking clearly, and making a solid plan for your money. That's the hidden health tax in action. One bad night of sleep because of money stress doesn't ruin your life, but years of it, that absolutely does damage. Over time, chronic stress is linked to higher blood pressure, worse immune function, more weight gain, higher risk of depression and anxiety, and a shorter life expectancy. People love to talk about compound interest on investments. Almost nobody talks about compound interest on stress, but it's very real. Every month you live in financial chaos, you're adding another small layer of wear and tear on your body that you don't see until it shows up as a health crisis you can't ignore. Now layer in the emotional side. When money is a constant problem, it doesn't stay in the money box. It leaks into relationships. You're not just arguing about a bill, you're arguing about fear, shame, regret, and feeling trapped. Someone makes a small purchase and the other person explodes, not because of the item, but because that purchase represents another step away from safety in their mind. Your patience is lower, your tolerance is smaller, and every conversation has this background hum of, "We can't afford to screw up." This is why saying "just budget better" is such a weak answer for people who are already drowning. You can't spreadsheet your way out of a nervous system that's on fire. You have to understand that money problems and health problems are deeply connected. When your body believes you're in danger all the time, your capacity for rational planning shrinks. That doesn't mean planning is useless. It means the first step is acknowledging what you're actually up against, not just a math issue, but a stress machine that's draining you physically and mentally. Here's something most people never think about. Financial stress can literally change the way you see yourself. If you're constantly behind, constantly late, constantly struggling, it's easy to start believing that you are bad with money, or irresponsible, or not the kind of person who ever gets ahead. Those stories matter. They affect how aggressively you go after better jobs, whether you negotiate your salary, whether you even believe it's worth trying to change your situation. If you see yourself as someone who is permanently stuck, you will unconsciously make choices that keep you stuck, because at least that matches your identity. So, in a very real way, the hidden health tax isn't just hitting your body, it's hitting your identity. It's turning temporary financial problems into a permanent story about who you are. And once that story hardens, you start self-sabotaging without even noticing. You might not apply for a better job because they'd never hire someone like me. You might avoid asking questions about investing because people like me don't do that. You stay small not because you're incapable, but because money stress has been rewiring your self-image for years. Let's zoom out. If you look at the average financial picture of a lot of working adults, the numbers are already worrying. Low savings, high consumer debt, little or no cushion for emergencies. But if you could see the invisible side, the sleepless nights, the panic before checking the mail, the fights about small expenses, the health issues quietly brewing, it would look even worse. That invisible side is where the real damage happens, long before a bank ever says you're in trouble. And this is why understanding the hidden health tax is so important. If you believe money is just about discipline, you'll judge yourself harshly every time you slip. You'll think you're weak, lazy, or stupid. You'll push harder, burn out faster, and then crash back into the same habits. But if you understand that money stress is rewiring your body to operate in constant emergency mode, you can approach it differently. You can treat it like a system problem, not a character flaw. In this first chapter, the goal isn't to give you a perfect plan or pretend that one habit change will fix everything. The goal is to pull this problem out into the open and call it what it is. Financial stress is not just an annoyance, it is a full-scale attack on your health, your energy, your relationships, and your ability to think clearly. It is a tax you pay with your body long before you pay with your bank account. In the next chapter, we're going to look at where this hidden tax explodes the most violently, inside relationships. Because if money can quietly poison your health, it can absolutely burn through trust, communication, and stability at home. And the statistics there are even uglier than the numbers in your bank balance. If money only wrecked bank accounts, most relationships would vigil. The real damage begins when money stops being a neutral tool and starts speaking on your behalf. It speaks in your tone when you snap over a small purchase. It speaks in your silence when you pretend everything is fine. It speaks in the moment one of you stops feeling like a partner and starts feeling like a problem. Let's start ugly. Money is one of the leading reasons couples fall apart, but it almost never shows up in the breakup story as we split because of Visa card interest rates. On the surface, people say we drifted apart, we argued too much, we wanted different things. Translate that, we never felt safe together around money, and it slowly killed everything else. Picture this couple. They're both in their early 30s, decent jobs, nothing crazy. When they first get together, money is background noise. They split dinners, share rides, buy each other gifts. Nobody's asking, what's your debt-to-income ratio? They're busy falling in love, not running a balance sheet. Fast forward a few years, they move in together. Now rent, groceries, utilities, subscriptions, all of that lands on one combined reality. He earns a bit more, so he quietly covers more. At first, it feels like generosity. 2 years later, it feels like pressure. On her side, every time he pays extra, it quietly registers as guilt. I'm dragging him down. They don't talk about it directly. They just collect small, invisible resentments like points. Then the first real collision hits. Maybe it's a medical bill, a car repair, or a family emergency. Suddenly, all the flexible, we'll-figure-it-out optimism gets replaced by, how did we end up here? He thinks, we wouldn't be in this mess if you didn't spend so much. She thinks, we wouldn't be in this mess if you made more or planned better. Neither says that out loud, at least not the first time. But the thought is there, and once it appears, it's hard to unthink. Here's where money starts changing roles. It stops being the thing you use together and becomes the weapon you use on each other. Do we really need that? No longer means let's be smart. It means I don't trust your judgment. We can't afford this doesn't just mean the numbers don't work. It means you're not taking this seriously. The actual amount on the bill matters less than what it symbolizes: safety, effort, respect, control. Now let's add debt to the picture. Imagine she has old credit card balances and a student loan, and he has a car payment he never really thought through. When they were dating, those were just background details. Once they try to plan something bigger, buying a home, having a child, starting a business, those old decisions suddenly sit right in the middle of the table. It's no longer just my debt and your debt, it's our delay, our postponed dreams, our not yet. That's when shame walks in the door and sits between them on the couch. Shame doesn't like sunlight, so people start hiding things. One forgets to mention a late payment. The other rounds down their balance. Someone deletes an email from a lender instead of opening it in front of the other person. Technically, they're still together. Practically, they're each fighting their own quiet war with money in separate silos. Trust doesn't blow up in a single dramatic scene. It dissolves through 100 tiny moments where money felt too dangerous to talk about honestly. Now think about what all this does to daily life. One partner checks the bank app 10 times a day, heart rate jumping every time. The other avoids looking at it at all. One wants to talk about a budget and gets met with eye rolls, shutdown, or defensiveness. The other feels constantly interrogated. Both feel alone in the same problem. That's the relationship countdown, not to $0, but to zero trust. And remember, all of this is happening in a world where comparison is one swipe away. She scrolls and sees friends on vacations, in renovated kitchens, driving new cars. Even if she intellectually knows most of it is financed, emotionally it still hits like, why are we so behind? He sees other people his age posting about promotions, new houses, investments. He starts hearing a voice saying, "You're failing." Those insecurities rarely get named directly. They get projected. Suddenly, a simple conversation about going out to eat turns into a test. If he says, "Let's stay in, we should save," she hears, "You don't deserve small joys because we're broke." If she says, "Let's treat ourselves, it's been a hard week," he hears, "You don't care how hard I'm working, you just spend." One dialogue, two completely different translations, both powered by money stress. At some point along this countdown, someone stops feeling like a partner and starts feeling like a parent. Maybe one person is naturally more organized with money, so they take over the bills, the planning, the reminders. At first, it's a relief. Thank you for handling this. Over time, the dynamic shifts. Did you pay that? Why did you buy this? We talked about this. Those are not partner sentences. Those are parent sentences. And parents do not stay attracted to their kids for long. The other person feels that shift, even if they can't articulate it. They start hiding small purchases to avoid lectures. They start minimizing their stress because they don't want to hear another solution speech. They stop bringing up ideas because every conversation turns into a spreadsheet. The result is predictable. Money, which was supposed to be a shared resource, now becomes a constant reminder of who's failing and who's fixing. This is the point where escape fantasies start showing up. Not necessarily because someone doesn't love their partner, but because they want to escape the permanent feeling of being judged, questioned, or blamed. When every bill is an argument and every plan is a fight, leaving can start to look like the only way to breathe. Notice one thing. In almost every version of this story, both people actually want the same things: less stress, more stability, a basic sense of safety, the ability to say yes to something occasionally without panic. But they're stuck in roles: the worrier and the avoider, the responsible one and the reckless one, the adult and the child. Money is no longer just a topic, it's the script that defines who each person is allowed to be in the relationship. The most dangerous part is silence. When couples stop talking about money altogether because it's too stressful, they think they're avoiding conflict. They're not. They're letting resentment quietly stack up like unpaid bills. One day, a small thing, a pair of shoes, a dinner out, a forgotten payment, lights up a mountain of built-up frustration. The argument looks like it's about one transaction. It's not. It's about years of feeling unsafe together. So, what is this chapter really about? It's not about convincing you that money is important in relationships. You already know that. It's about recognizing when money has stopped being a neutral tool and started speaking in your place. When "we can't afford that," it actually means "I'm terrified we'll never get ahead." When "you're bad with money," it actually means "I don't know how to feel safe with you." When "I don't want to talk about this," it actually means "I don't want to feel like a failure in front of you again." In the first chapter, the hidden health tax showed how money stress quietly attacks your body. In relationships, the tax is even higher. You pay with trust, intimacy, and connection. And once those are gone, it doesn't matter how good the numbers look on paper. The relationship can still be bankrupt. In the next chapter, we're going to zoom out from love and look at your career. Because if money can make you stay in a broken relationship longer than you should, it can absolutely keep you chained to a job, a boss, or an environment that is slowly grinding you down, just because your bank balance keeps whispering the same sentence in your ear: you can't afford to leave. There's a sentence millions of people never say out loud, but live by every single day. I hate this job, but I can't afford to leave. That one belief is the reason so many smart, capable people stay in toxic environments, accept nonsense from managers, and drag themselves through years of work that slowly grinds them down. It's not because they lack ambition. It's because money quietly turned their job from a choice into a cage. Let's be blunt. If your entire lifestyle is built right up to the edge of your paycheck, your employer doesn't just pay you, they own you. They own when you wake up, where you spend your days, how much energy you have left when you come home, and how much disrespect you're willing to tolerate. The thinner your financial margin, the more you will swallow just to keep the direct deposit alive. Picture this. Sarah makes decent money for her city, nothing crazy, but enough that from the outside, she looks like she's doing well. She's got a car on payments, a couple of credit cards, rent that already feels too high, subscriptions she barely uses, and a lifestyle that perfectly absorbs her entire income. She tells herself she'll start saving when things calm down, but they never do. Then her job changes. A new manager arrives, the kind who micromanages everything, sends emails at 10 p.m., and loves urgent weekend calls. Within 6 months, Sarah is burned out. She cries in her car before walking into the office. She's snapping at people she cares about. She spends Sunday afternoons with that heavy feeling in her chest, counting the hours until Monday. She scrolls job listings at night, finds a few options that look interesting, and then stops cold the moment she remembers her bank balance. If she quits and it takes 2 or 3 months to land something new, she's done. If the new role pays even a bit less, her entire life collapses. So she stays, not because it's a good decision, but because every other option feels like jumping without a parachute. Here's the part that should scare you. The longer someone stays in a job purely out of financial fear, the more expensive that decision becomes. Chronic stress doesn't just make you feel awful, it wrecks your focus, your creativity, and your performance. You start making more mistakes, missing opportunities, avoiding big projects because you don't have the energy. Promotions pass you by because you look disengaged. Raises are smaller because you're not pushing for more. The exact thing you're sacrificing your mental health for, your income, quietly weakens over time. Money stress doesn't just keep you in a bad job, it shrinks your idea of what's even possible. Compare 2 people in the same situation. One has 6 months of expenses saved. The other has 6 days. The first can say, "This place is destroying me. I'm out. I'll take a calculated risk on something better." The second tells themselves, "This is just how adult life is. Everyone hates their job. I should be grateful I even have one." That's career paralysis, when your financial situation writes the script for your entire professional life.
This shows up in 1,000 small ways. You don't negotiate your salary because you're terrified they'll rescind the offer. You don't push back on unreasonable demands because you're scared of being labeled difficult. You say yes to every extra task, every late night, every weekend email, because somewhere in the back of your mind a voice is whispering, you cannot afford to upset these people. On paper, you're an employee. In reality, you're a hostage who smiles. Now zoom out and look at what this does to everything outside of work. If your job drains you to empty, what's left for your own life? You get home and you're too exhausted to be present with your partner, your kids, or your friends. That side project you always talk about never gets real energy. It lives on a to-do list next to someday. Weekends stop being a time to build something and turn into 2 days of trying to feel less dead inside before you start the cycle again. You call it a busy season, but without a plan or a buffer, that season can quietly turn into a decade. The trap looks like this. When you have no financial margin, you're constantly forced to choose between your mental health and your paycheck. You either stay in an environment that's slowly wrecking you, or you risk not being able to pay for your basic life. That isn't freedom. That's managed captivity with benefits. And it's not just about individuals failing to save. Everything around you is designed to keep you right on that edge. Easy credit makes it simple to upgrade your life faster than your income. Car loans stretch to 7 or 8 years so you can afford vehicles that eat a huge chunk of your monthly cash flow. Subscriptions quietly pile up until you're paying hundreds every month for things you barely notice. Social media fills your feed with people living their best life, so staying modest feels like you're losing. All of this pushes you toward a lifestyle where there is never any real extra. Why? Because the moment you build a serious buffer, 3, 6, 9 months of breathing room, your tolerance for nonsense collapses. You become harder to control. You stop playing the game on fear mode. And that is not in the system's best interest. This chapter isn't about telling you to just quit or follow your passion. That's garbage advice for someone whose rent is due next week.
It's about naming what's really happening when you say, I have no choice. Most of the time, it's not your job that's got you locked in. It's your lack of margin. It's years of decisions, some yours, some pushed on you, that left you with no runway to make a bold move, even if staying is slowly costing you your health and your future. In the first chapter, money stress quietly attacked your body. In the second, it undermined your closest relationships. Here in the third, it hijacked your career and convinced you that being stuck is the same thing as being stable. All three have the same pattern. When you're always at zero, every decision feels like a crisis. Which brings everything to the real question this entire video is building toward. Is there a specific financial breaking point, a number, where this constant sense of danger finally flips into real options? Not some fantasy of you need $1 million, but the level where money stops being your warden and starts acting like your bodyguard. The point where your health, your relationships, and your career all start to feel different because for the first time, you actually have room to breathe. Let's stop pretending this is about getting rich someday. Most people don't need $1 million to change their life. They need to stop living one bad week away from disaster. The real turning point isn't when you can flex on Instagram. It's when one piece of bad news no longer has the power to blow up your entire existence. So yes, there is a breaking point number. Not perfect for everyone, but real enough to aim at. For a lot of people, it sits somewhere around 3 to 6 months of bare-bones living expenses sitting in cash, untouched. Strip your life down to the basics: rent or mortgage, food, utilities, basic transportation, insurance. No vacations, no gadgets, no nice to have. If your life costs, say, $2,000 a month at survival mode, your breaking point number starts around $6,000 and becomes genuinely life-changing somewhere in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. If you're at $3,000 a month, the range is closer to $9,000 to $18,000. Those are real reachable numbers, not fantasy money. To see why this matters, put two people side by side. Person A has $300 in the bank and a paycheck on Friday. Person B has $12,000 sitting in an account that never drops below that line. They both get the same news on the same day. We're restructuring. Your role is gone. For person A, that sentence doesn't just mean you lost your job. It means panic. How do I pay rent next month? What do I tell my partner? Do I put groceries on a credit card? What happens if I don't find anything for 3 months? Their brain goes straight into emergency mode. They grab the first job they can get, even if it's worse. They don't negotiate. They can't be picky. They don't have time to think. For person B, the same sentence still hurts. It's stressful, it's inconvenient, it's humbling, but it is not a full-scale existential crisis. They have months to breathe. They can take a week to recover mentally before even looking for something new. They can treat job hunting like a strategy, not a scramble. They can say no to garbage offers because they're not negotiating with an empty fridge behind them. Same economy, same job market, completely different life. That's the breaking point number at work. It doesn't make bad things stop happening. It changes what those bad things mean. The effect shows up everywhere. Health first. When you know you can survive a few months without income, your nervous system finally gets to stand down. You don't spend every night pre-living imaginary disasters. You don't wake up in the middle of the night because of a weird noise in your car engine, already calculating how you'll pay for it. You still get stressed, but you're not living in permanent alarm mode. That difference is the gap between constantly fried and actually functional. Then, relationships. When every unexpected expense feels like the difference between we're fine and we're screwed, every purchase becomes a potential fight. With a real buffer, a $200 surprise doesn't turn into a 3-day argument. It's a line item you adjust for next month. You and your partner stop treating each other like threats to your survival and start acting like teammates again. You're not calmer because you magically became better people. You're calmer because the ground under you stopped moving. And career? This is where the number really flexes. Take that same breaking point, let's say 10,000 to 20,000, depending on your expenses. Before you reach it, every thought about leaving a toxic job feels like fantasy. After you cross it, the fantasy turns into an actual option. You don't have to storm out, you don't have to be reckless, but you can finally ask, is the price I'm paying in stress, health, and wasted years worth this paycheck? And know that no is something you can act on. You'll interview differently when you're not desperate. You'll negotiate differently when you know you don't need to say yes to the first number they throw at you. You'll tolerate less nonsense because you're not terrified of what happens if someone decides they don't like you. The money in the account doesn't go to work, but it lets you work from a position of power instead of fear. Now here's the part nobody likes to hear. There is also a breaking point in the other direction. If you never build this buffer, your life has a shape too, it's just uglier. You already know what it looks like. You stay in relationships longer than you should because you're scared of paying for life alone. You stay in jobs that are killing you because you're scared of not finding anything fast enough. You say yes to things you hate because you're scared of losing any income at all. You live with a constant hum of anxiety in the background, and you call it normal adult life. That's the future you choose by doing nothing. So no, this final chapter isn't about some motivational you can do it speech. It's about a very simple, very uncomfortable fork in the road. Path 1, keep running your life at 0. Keep hoping nothing major goes wrong. Keep trading your health, your relationships, and your career choices for the ability to say, at least the bills are paid this month. 10 years from now, you'll have a long list of things you endured and a very short list of things you actually chose. Path 2, make the breaking point number your first real non-negotiable goal. Not a vague save more, but an actual target with teeth. My bare-bones life costs X per month. I'm building at least 3 to 6X, and I'm not pretending I'm stable before I get there. No drama, no fantasy, just a clear definition of I am no longer one bad week away from losing control of my life. You don't have to get there this year. You don't have to live like a monk, but you do have to decide whether you're okay living the rest of your life at the mercy of every bill, every boss, every piece of bad luck, or whether you're willing to treat this number like what it actually is. Not just money in an account, but the line where you stop living in constant reaction and start actually designing your life on purpose.